right. I'm sure, like many people are aware of the jab passports that are in place where you can't where you can't like enter like certain places like unless unless you have proof that you've been jabbed. So I'm sure like there's concerns about like privacy issues and all that when it comes to when it comes to like the jab passes and all that and to disclose having to disclose that like when you're entering almost almost like any public place. So I'm gonna pull up an article right now that I'll they'll talk more about it. So I'm gonna pull up an article right now. So, so this is an article from True North. It says jab passes are a road to global surveillance, says former privacy commissioner. So then here's a picture of the um, of I guess the code that people need to have on their phones, I guess, to prove that they've been jabbed. So it says Ontario's former Information and Privacy Commissioner Dr. Anne Cavoukian is raising the alarm about the potential for jab passes to be used by governments to spy on their citizens. Cavoukian, who also holds the senior fellowship at Ryerson University's Ted Rogers Leadership Center and is the executive director of the Global Privacy and Security by Design Center, made the comments in an interview with the Epoch Times. Wherever you have to give your jab passport, it's not just the QR code. They're asking you for identification, your driver's license, your phone number. There's personal information linked to it. Well, actually, yeah. Even before like the government in Ontario implemented these jab passports. Like I know, like the restaurants they were like already asking for like your personal information, all that. If like if you chose to dine in, like they would already be asking you for like your personal information, like your phone number and all that. So like yeah, like even before like the passports were like implemented, the like some places of business were already asking for personal information. So um, yeah, so it's not something entirely new, but um, then she goes on to say there will be G geolocation data associated with where you were and at what time. Governments can engage in surveillance and pull these all together and know where you were, at what time, who you were with. The Ontario government has claimed that the jab passport model they've introduced on October 15, 2021 provides greater security and privacy protection by way of using a QR code, which is essentially an advanced barcode that can contain more information. Um, then it says, however, as experts However, as experts have pointed out, Jap passports are not impervious to abuse or attacks from cyber criminals or foreign entities. A group of so-called hackers notified the a group of so-called hackers notified the Quebec government that it was able to access the QR codes of several high-profile politicians, including Quebec Premier François Legault, by way of a loophole in the system. Additionally, as Cavoukian explains, governments have not indicated when an end to the JAP passport system will take place. What often happens is when there's an emergency, the privacy laws get lifted because it's an emergency situation and additional measures are introduced. Then, when the emergency ends, those privacy invasive measures often continue, she said. Well, so for that part there in Ontario, Doug Ford, who's the premier of Ontario, he's saying that like the COVID restrictions are supposed to come to an end like in March 2022, so like next year, but um, but I highly doubt it, and especially considering the way like all three levels of government have handled this like COVID pandemic. I would take whatever I would take something like that, like with a grain of salt, because I don't think they're not gonna easily like give up all of this like power and authority they've had since the pandemic started. So yeah, like I would take something like that Doug Ford said, like with a grain of salt. So, so that's what happened with the that's what happened with 9/11 with the Patriot Act and others. And so my fear is that people are going to just expect to have to reveal their job status on a go forward basis, even when the pandemic ends. On Friday, the Ontario government unveiled its reopening plan, which aimed to lift the province's job passport system in early 2022. However, their plan is contingent on factors such as case numbers and hospital capacity. So, so yeah, here it says the Ontario government is like plan is well, they're saying that they plan to lift the job passport system in early 2022, but it also says like their plan is contingent on factors such as case numbers and hospital capacity. So yeah, like even they're saying that they're not entirely sure if they'll even reopen the province by then. So then it says Cavoukian. So it says, according to Cavoukian, this kind of data gathering will create a global digital infrastructure of surveillance, which is constantly being updated by hundreds and thousands of sites that are obtaining these job passports from you. With job passports, people are being forced, they're being demanded. So Yeah, exactly. Like it's no it's no one's business. It's supposed to be like between the person and their doctor, like what their medical like status and all that is. Like a restaurant has no place of business. Like a restaurant has no like it's not for them to. It's like it's not part of their job, or it's like they're not in the business of asking people for like their medicals, their medical condition or their medical status. So that's something between like a doctor and and, yeah, and the individual. So yeah, like she's not entirely wrong with what she's saying here, and yeah, and that's the end of the article. So we close that now, and there's also um, yeah, and I think there's also like an expanded version of what she said. So I'm gonna pull that up right now because I think she talked about it more in length. So so this is from the Epoch Times. So yeah, this was the newspaper or the outlet that she gave an interview with. So I think this is like a more expanded version of it. So it says the Jap. Yeah. Um, yeah. So I think what she said here, it's yeah. So this is what. So I think I read most of this stuff like in the article I showed earlier. So um, my app certificate looks like the digital version of it. So I'll probably start off start off here. Because the USA Patriot Act was introduced in the wake of 9/11 as a means for the U.S. government to increase its ability to intercept and obstruct terrorist communications and activities. The act expanded the government's power to monitor phone and email communications, conduct searches, and seize or demand disclosure of records. And it says it should never be privacy versus public safety. It says Cavoukian says the government has no legal basis to demand that people reveal their medical information, including their job status. Health information is very strongly protected, said Cavoukian. In Canada and Ontario, we have the PHIPA, the Personal Health Information Protection Act. So it should only be an individual's choice if they wish to reveal this information. With job passports, people are being forced, they're demanded to reveal their job status. And that should be no one's business except for the individual and their own doctor. Debates about the merits of job passports continue, with some experts contending that the system will keep people safer and allow the economy to reopen, with the common good outweighing any privacy issues. With common good outweighing any privacy issues? That sounds, yeah, well, it sounds a little bit similar as to when they say how like the restrictions and how all the restrictions are like they outweigh the charter. So like the government, like they're pretty much yeah, like they're pretty much infringing on people's charter rights with all these job passports and lockdowns. So this part here, like outweighing any privacy issues, it sounds common good outweighing any privacy issues. It sounds similar to when they say the government says like how all the restrictions like outweighs the charter. So like how the restrictions and all that justifies like the infringement of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and all that. So yeah, I just want to point that out because it seems like they're just like justifying all these restrictions, and they're not taking into consideration like um the infringement of people's charter rights as they're doing all this. So it says Cavoukian calls this argument nonsense because privacy infringements inherently make citizens more vulnerable. She says that instead of job passports, less invasive measures such as rapid testing could be introduced. Well, the rapid tests, there's been like court cases or case law like in Europe that have mentioned how the rapid tests or the PCR swabs and all that, they're actually like unreliable and also unconstitutional as well. So even like those tests are an infringement on people's like constitutional or charter rights because they're having a medical procedure done against their will. So yeah, like I know in like the courts in Europe, they've already ruled that these PCR or rapid tests they're unconstitutional, but but here in Canada and I think in the United States, like it's still being done, which like for reasons like I'm not then it says it should never be privacy versus public safety. It's not it's not a zero sum game. Either or either or win lose. It has to be privacy and public safety, Cavoukian said. Privacy experts said her concerns extend to Canadians who chose not to be jabbed and may face discrimination or even unemployment related to their jab status. It's so unfair because there are some people who are immunocompromised. It's so unfair because there are some people who are immunocompromised. They have anaphylaxis. They cannot get jabs, so those people are going to be treated terribly. So, well, it's already happening right now as like many workplaces they're making the jabs mandatory. So yeah, like the only reason like they're like workplaces are hiring or that their job openings is because they're making it mandatory to get jobs. So they're basically firing employees who aren't jabbed like en masse. So yeah, if you aren't jabbed, then like your workplace will end up firing you. So that's happening a lot now as like many workplaces are like making mandatory. So they're hoping that they can hire people who have taken the jab or who will sign away their rights to get the shot. So yeah, and also in the private sector, like if you do get fired over like refusing to get the jab or even those tests, like the employer will have to pay you severance for that as they can't force you to do any of it. So like I'm so yeah, I'm not sure like if the employers have caught on to that, or if but like they have to like pay you severance if they decide to fire you for not taking the jab or the test. So yeah, I think like I don't like I'm not sure if they've like realized that, but like I think eventually they're gonna like start to like understand that like they can't just fire people over like a refusal to get the job. So yeah, now I'm gonna continue reading the article. So then it says British Columbia residents face one of the most stringent proof of job systems in Canada. The BC government's job card, which came into effect on September 13, which allows access to certain non-essential businesses and services, while provincial health authorities do not allow any exemptions for those who remain unjabbed, including people with complex medical conditions. Um, well, I'm sure there's going to be like lawsuits being filed against that. So yeah, like I can't see any government like trying to implement a policy like that without some type of like litigation, like not honoring medical exemptions or medical conditions. And yeah, like I'm sure there's going to be a lawsuit against that. So and actually, like I think there is because I think this article says legal organization taking BC government to court over mandatory jab passport policy. So yeah, like they can like implement like a policy like this without some type of legal challenge. So yeah, so that lawsuits are already like being filed. Lawsuits are already like beginning to come. So I'm sure there's going to be more of that happening. And then it says jab passport systems have been steadily expanding across Canada since September, and various versions are now enforced or planned in nearly every province and territory. At the federal level, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland announced at a joint press conference on October 6th that federal employees have until October 29th to be fully jabbed or face being placed on administrative leave without pay as early as November 15th. And starting October 30th, all travelers aged 12 or older will also be required to provide proof of being fully jabbed before boarding planes, trains, or marine vessels in Canada. Cavoukian says she's very concerned about what happens to the jab passport system's inescapable web of surveillance after the pandemic ends. Privacy forms the foundation of our freedom. If you value freedom and liberty, you value privacy, she said. We have to stand up for our freedom and we have to stand up for privacy. Exactly. Our governments right now, they're just like infringing on people's rights and privacy. So, and also, yeah, and also, like starting October 30th, they're planning on implementing like proof of the job passport for boarding planes, trains, or marine vessels. Uh, I'm sure. I'm sure there's gonna be lawsuits filed against that too. So yeah, like I can't see them like implementing these kinds of policies like without some type of legal challenge to it, as it's gonna like it's gonna cause like discrimination or like segregation, all that. So like all based on like a private medical decision that's supposed to be between like the doctor and the individual. So yeah, like I'm sure there's gonna be like legal challenges like being filed against this, because like what they're doing is it's all like it's like all unlawful and unconstitutional as well, as they're basically like they're pretty much just like violating the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and like and the Constitution as well by doing all this. So yeah, like expect legal challenges to be filed. And yeah, and I think that's the end of the article. Yeah, it is. So that's from the Epoch Times. They publish like a lot of good information. So I suggest you people start reading them, start reading like their newspapers. So yeah, that's the end of the article. I can close that now. So yeah, like governments, on all three levels, they're pretty much infringing on people's rights with these jab passport policies. So yeah, luckily there's like, and apparently in British Columbia they have it even worse, as they don't even like honor medical exemptions. So and I think there's a lawsuit being filed against that too. So yeah, and also yeah, that's it's like tyranny, medical tyranny happening right now. So it's like medical tyranny happening right now. So as like everything they're doing is illegal, and like they're making people like they're forcing people to like disclose their medical information like publicly. So like against their wills. So yeah, like all of which is illegal, and there's laws that protect like people's privacy and medical information. So yeah, it's all like illegal what they're doing. So um, yeah, and like that. And also at the end of that article, she said like people have to stand up for their yeah like privacy. Yeah, like we have to stand up for our freedom and we have to stand up for our freedom and we have to stand up for privacy. So yeah, like she's saying like we have to stand up for those things. Otherwise, the government will just continue to like infringe on people's rights, and they're just gonna keep on doing it. So yeah, I hope people begin like um, speaking out against that, and start demanding for their rights and freedoms back, as it's all being taken away by like pretty much all three levels of government. So yeah, that's everything I wanted to like talk about and show. So I'll be signing off.